Joining us. I'm Connor Jordan, manning the controls here with GoToWebinar. And our speaker today, as always, is Seth Davies. He's our managing partner. And Seth will be talking about employee accountability, empowerment in action. Thanks a lot for joining us, Seth. Go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Connor, and let me add my good morning to everyone that has joined us today on this topic of accountability. This is a topic that I am very passionate about because what I hear from a lot of leaders and from a lot of employees in the organization is we need to have better accountability. There's no accountability around here. And what I have seen in the 16, 17 years I've been doing this, my firm sees is that one reason that there isn't a culture of accountability in many organizations is because there's not a visible tactical representation of accountability, and there's not a process, an organizational process to hold people accountable. And people at all levels in the organization, whether it's middle managers, your associates at the lowest level, or your senior executives, they love the concept of accountability because now everyone is engaged, everyone is empowered to do their job, and they've got clearly defined expectations, that clearly defined goals and objectives. And one of the things that I hear from a lot of employees is, I don't want to be micromanaged. And when we have true accountability in place with clearly defined goals and objectives, clearly defined target dates, it helps us feel comfortable that our employees are doing what we're asking them to do, but then our employees feel comfortable knowing that, hey, my leader's just as accountable for results and for actions as I am around that. So what I'm going to share with you is, a methodology to bring visibility to accountability. The core foundation of our organization is called process-based leadership. There are 4 key elements to process-based leadership. I'm going to focus on 2 of those today, one being accountability and the other being touching a little bit upon communication. Real quick, we've got some workshops coming up next month here in Atlanta if anyone is interested in learning more about process-based leadership and cutting-edge strategies for maximizing business performance. Here's what we're going to talk about. Why is accountability important in organizations? We're going to talk about my definition of what I see accountability is, and then share with you some tools and processes that you can immediately implement to your organization to increase that level of accountability at all levels and all functions in the organization. So why is accountability important? Well, when we have true accountability, we've got high engagement, which in turn will equal high performance in the organization. And I found a couple of studies. I want to share you a couple of statistics. Highly engaged employees outperform their peers by as much as 28%. And then another one, which is tied directly to revenue, directly to the bottom line, is this. Organizations with low employee engagement saw an average decline of operating income of more than 1/3. I mean, that's pretty powerful right there. That really builds the case that we need to have a highly engaged workforce where there's collective accountability, not what I see in many organizations, which is selective engagement. And what I mean by selective engagement is where if you look over your team of 10 people, you've got 2 or 3 people that are highly engaged. You got probably 3 or 4 that are a little bit engaged, and then you've got some folks that they're doing the bare minimum to get by, and I would say they're not engaged at all. And leaders, they don't take the time to truly highly engage their employees because they don't know how to do that. Because as we illustrate here, is that they don't have an accountability strategy. The reality is it's the organization that doesn't have an accountability strategy. It's the organization that's not saying we need to have a culture of true accountability with that. But yet 90% of the leaders say, hey, accountability can directly, positively impact my business. So what happens when we don't have true accountability? Well, we've got what I call a culture of dependency on the leader. And I saw this recently within an organization this summer when I was walking in the hallway with a middle manager, and one of his employees came up to him and asked what was a very benign question, but the response from the leader spoke volumes about the culture of that organization. The employee came up to his leader, middle manager, and said, hey, how much vacation do I have left this year? The middle manager said, I don't know, but I would look into it. It's that culture of dependency where my leader is there to solve my issues, my challenges, not really do what the leader was hired to do, which is manage the business, grow the business, be strategic around the business. So what happens? You got sporadic accountability in organizations, employee productivity and performance suffer because, again, we've got selective engagement. And later on, I'm going to show you a tool where you can measure what's the level of engagement, what's the level of employee productivity within your organization. Imbalance and expectations set by poor performance. It's a very strong pain point for a lot of leaders. And for a lot of employees is that you've got poor performers, but yet we lack a process, a way to engage them, to have that true accountability within the organization. So we're going to talk more about how do we do that? How can we get that? Let's talk about employee accountability defined. Deliberate, demonstrative action. The leader provides the what and the why. The employee provides the how. So by having those clearly defined goals and objectives of what I need you to do with clear target dates, we can rely on our employees to get the job done on time, with purpose, and with impact on business goals, where they can answer the questions, are we winning, are we losing? Because what they're truly doing is, for metrics that they're not hitting their goals and objectives on, they're not relying on the leader to come tell them what they need to do differently. They're coming together as a team to say, okay, what do we need to do differently as a result of this metric that's read on our scorecard? So they're coming together, getting that job done with the impact on the business goals. Connor had mentioned at the outset we were going to do some polls just to get a sense of our audience today. So Connor, I'm going to pause now, and if you would launch our first poll of the morning, please.
There you go. We'll give everybody about 25, 30 seconds to answer this and then share the results. All right, about 5 more seconds. Okay.
Let's see the results, Connor.
There you go, Seth. Number one answer, 61%. About half of us are engaged.
And that's about what I would expect for many organizations around that. So let's talk a little bit more about accountability and talk about how do we fix this? How do we break out of this cycle of dependency that we have in organizations? Well, we need to first establish accountability. And that establishment, that's got to come from the leadership team. That's got to be the leadership team in the business unit, whether it's in the IT group or whether it's in the HR group, operations group. Somebody in the organization says we need to start having a culture of accountability, and they need to create that culture, and they can do that with a tool called an action register, which I'll introduce you to in a minute. But that's bringing visibility to accountability. That's saying this is how we're going to measure accountability. We're going to measure engagement with an organization. We then need to monitor it, track it, and we'll do that by the utilization of that action register, looking at those target dates. Are people hitting the target dates that have been set forth, and are they hitting the target dates that have been agreed upon? And then to sustain it, we got to have public recognition. And if you've been on our webinars before, you know that recognition is another topic that I think organizations can do a much better job of. So we need to have public recognition for our employees when they're doing what we're asking them to do. And I'm not talking about town hall meetings where we bring everyone together and we hand out T-shirts or coffee mugs. I'm talking about on a weekly basis providing what I call the intangible, informal type of recognition, where we're giving them the handshakes, the pat on the back, saying, job well done. When we start creating a culture of recognition, then we're going to start building that culture of accountability within the organization. And go back to point number one, we got to establish it. So how can we establish it? Where you're going to use a tool called an action register. A couple of things that this is going to do for the organization when you have it. One, it's going to break that culture of dependency. And go back to my example before about the vacation request. That's not the role of the leader to answer that question. The role of the leader is to listen, to empathize, and to empower that employee and hold that employee accountable to make sure that they go seek the answer to the question that they have around that. It drives collective accountability, teamwork. So we can look out among our team to see who's got what on their plate, what are people working on, who can we give tasks to, so that leaders aren't managing by personality, but leaders are managing by process, by sharing the workload on an equal basis. It will bring visibility because now we've gotten documented critical assignments and tasks. We've got those documented. We've got those written down where we can look out to see. Eliminates ignorance as an excuse. I can't tell you how many times I hear people say, I didn't know about that. No one told me. Well, if we follow the accountability process that I'm about to share with you, we're going to remove ignorance as an excuse where people can't say that, because we're going to get those verbal affirmations, those face-to-face discussions around, here's what we need you to do, and here's the target date. Can you agree to this? and get that verbal affirmation that people can do that. And then what that's going to do is it's going to raise the bar on expectations in terms of making sure that everyone is fully engaged within our team moving things forward. So let's look at a visible representation of accountability. Here it is, action register. Let me walk you through this to kind of give you some rules around this, some semantics on how you use this. First column is the action, what must happen or what someone must do. And when you're in a meeting and you hear terms such as I will, someone should, let's do this, those are action terms. Those are people saying that something's got to happen. And by the way, every meeting needs to have an action keeper, someone that captures the actions on the action register, and in a minute we'll talk about how you review those at the end. But that's the first column. And my rule of thumb is this. I want to be able to go back a year from now and know exactly what that action was. If we put on the action register, check with IT, no one is going to know a year from now what was the context of that conversation or what check with IT was about. But if we put on there, check with IT about when they will release the new laptops for our new employees, we know exactly what that is. So I know we live in the world of text messages and Twitter and 140 characters. I don't care if that action is a half a page in length. I want the clarity, I want the specificity there so people know exactly what needs to happen. Next column is the owner. Who must get that action done? The owner can be only one person. We cannot have multiple people as the owners, because if we have Michael's name, Linda's name, and Paul's name on there, neither of them are going to do the action, and all three are going to say, well, I thought Michael was going to do it. I thought Paul was going to do it. I thought Linda was going to do it. One person is the owner of that action. Another process around that is the person has to be physically present to receive that action. They can't be on vacation or they can't be out of the office, and we're going to pile on Lisa today because she's not here. You've got to be physically present to receive an action so you understand the context of the conversation, why that action must happen, and why we assigned it to you around that. Target date. I want there to be a firm target date of when that action is going to be completed by so that people know what they've got to do during the next 7 days. So have that target date and have it agreed to. So if an employee says, you know, I can't meet that target date because look at everything else that I've got, then maybe we start looking at prioritization of what action on here for this employee or for this team is more important than some of the other ones, and some of those other target dates will change with that. When was that action? And by the way, on the target date, I don't want employees coming to their leaders the day an action is due and pleading and giving some sad story about why they didn't get their action done on time. I want you to think about establishing a time frame that says 48 hours or 72 hours in advance of an action target date, you must go to your leader and say, I'm not going to get this action done on time, and here's why. Because that leader may be gracious and say, hey, I understand it's been a bad week, we've had a lot of things happen, change that date. Or the discussion may go, this action is absolutely critical to our business, it's critical to our team, everything else has got to drop, and you've got to get this action done by that target date. So you're having those critical conversations, and you're having true accountability, because what happens many times is a target date will slip, and then it's going to slip again, and pretty soon we're just going to forget about that action, and it'll never get done. And then all the work you've done around accountability has fallen down. Completion date. I want a completion date on there. When was that action done? Was it done on time? Was it 5, 7 days late? Because this is, in a few minutes, is going to become a performance management tool for you. And then the comments field. Let's put in there, maybe the action was not completed on time because a supplier didn't get back to us or someone didn't return our phone calls in a timely manner. But let's have a comments field in there about our history of that action. I want to show you an actual action register from a team that I've worked with in an organization. This is a on-demand software that we have at Competitive Solutions. It's called PBL Scorecard. It links in directly to your metrics and your scorecards. But you'll see there very, very clearly what is the action that must happen, what someone needs to do, what does it apply to. Does it apply to a metric on a scorecard, or does it apply to something specific to the team? One person is responsible, and then you'll see there it's target dates, color-coded. The red ones are past due, the yellow or amber are out in the next 7 days, and then the white ones due in the future. But very visual. People can look at what do I need to do. You can see add to calendar. They can add these to their Microsoft Outlook so they get periodic reminders during the week of what are the things that I need to do to help my organization be successful. Let's talk about some ways, some utilizations of this action register. The first is around your meetings. And what I have learned is people don't mind going to meetings if something gets done, if it's an action-driven, outcome-focused meeting. And how many times have you been sitting in a meeting, you're sitting there thinking to yourself, we were here 3 weeks ago and John said he was going to do it. We were here 2 weeks ago and John said he was going to do it. We were here a week ago and John said he was going to do it. Here we are today, 4th time in a row, John says he's going to do it. I know it's not going to get done. Let's talk about something one time. Let's put it on the action register. Let's capture that with clearly defined target dates, because now what we'll have is shorter, more focused meetings because the action register and the scorecard are driving that meeting. We're not talking about things multiple times. We're talking about one of them. Will help leaders track what employees are doing. So I can look out over my team of 10 people to see who's got what on their plate. Who do I need to go engage? Who needs additional responsibilities? And it also becomes a training tool, a development tool where we can challenge employees and give them something maybe they haven't done before, something out of their comfort zone with that. Increase follow-through on assignments. Many times, and I call these drive-bys and hit runs, a leader will see an employee in the hallway or someone say, hey, I need you to do this. Well, this is what the employee's thinking. I know that 5 minutes from now, he or she's going to forget about what they just asked me to do. They're not going to follow up with me, so why should I follow through on it? But if we document it on the action register, we'll have increased follow-through on assignments because it's there. It's black and white, and it's written down. It's there for us to talk about. So let's talk about the action register and how this works in teams. And real quick about communication. Email is not a valid form of communication in organizations. Email is advertising. What I'm talking about here is coming together for 30 minutes a week to talk about the business and to talk about performance around things. And here's an action-oriented team agenda that I share with the organizations that I work with. First one is we're going to pull out that action register I just showed you, and we're just going to go through the actions that have a target date of today. We're not going to spend time looking at the ones that are next week or getting status updates on the ones that are due next month. Just go through the actions that are due that day. Lisa, you were going to check with IT about the new laptops being released for our employees. What they say? Here's what they said. Thank you very much. Michael, you were going to check with engineering about that new piece of equipment being brought in. What they say? Here's what they said. Thank you very much. You may have 4 or 5 actions that you need to run through at the start of your meeting. Go through them. Next thing is talk about the scorecard. The scorecard is the focal point of our team because the scorecard is the only thing we have in common. And then think about your organization. What's the only thing you have in common with the people you work with? The business. So let's focus on that. The next is around the table. Many times this is where your meetings can get hijacked or go down the wrong train track. When you allow people to bring up issues or items, here's what I say to people. When someone brings something up, allow a discussion for about a minute or so to occur, or 2 minutes, then ask the question, what's the action here? What needs to happen? It may be something so simple as Michael and Paul staying 5 minutes after the meeting and talking about something, or it may be something that's got to go on our action register signed to someone else. Recognition. I talked earlier about the need to sustain a culture of accountability. Put recognition on your agenda. It's the mental trigger that says, who do we need to recognize? Who did something that helped benefit our business and enabled us to move forward? The pass up, pass down. I could spend 2 hours talking about the pass up, pass down, but this is a key component. We've got some webinars archived on our website on communication and the pass up, pass down. But what the pass up, pass down is very quickly is it's bulletized briefing. What's the key information we need everyone in our organization to know the next 7 days? Leaders pass it up. Employees with questions, concerns, clarification. Leaders pass down. Employees pass up. So, and then finally, the action register review number 2. We're going to go through the actions that were just captured by our action keeper during that meeting. We're going to clearly define what needs to happen. We're going to have agreed upon target dates, and I literally want you to go around the table and say, Ann, you're going to do this by next Monday, the 29th. Yes. Get that verbal affirmation from the leader or from the employee. They know what they need to do to help the business be successful. Let's talk about another utilization of the action register and how it can increase your business results. Many times organizations measure, they'll have pretty scorecards, they'll have pretty Excel sheets, but what they're missing is the process to talk about a metric that's read and what we're going to do differently around that. So I want there to be corrective actions linked to that scorecard. Let me give you an example of that in just a second. But I want the team to come up with, hey, here's what we're going to do differently. We're going to diagnose the issue, and we're going to come up with a plan, a countermeasure to improve the metric to scores. What that's going to do is it's going to drive a continuous improvement mindset. Employees will be consistently innovating, look for ways to make things better than the organization to get better business results. So you'll see here's my scorecard. Here's my quality focus areas. You'll see some red on there, very visual. There's my action register. So let's link this, tie this together. Look at this arrow. It comes in, supplier defects. First thing they're going to do is which ones are exceeding it. And then on-time delivery, we got to come up with a delivery notification system. So that direct linkage between the scorecard and the action register helps drive better business results. And it's that analogy that I've used before, the thermometer or the thermostat. Many scorecards are simply thermometers in companies where they tell them the temperature. I want you to think about thermostats where it tells you the temperature, but then you go make an adjustment for metrics that are red that are below target. I'm going to pause here. Connor, if you would launch our second poll of the day, please, around accountability.
Okay, about 10 more seconds. All right, and here you go, Seth. About 24% have nothing like this, and 49%, at least they have some tool, but it's something different.
Okay. Well, great. Well, let me share with you another utilization of an action register. This is called a personal action register. And let's go back to the example I shared with you before about the employee and the question about summer vacation. Something like that needs to be captured. And what I see leaders do, that this action register, you'll see it's small, designed to fit in your pocket or your pocket on the front of your shirt. And it's got two pads. There's duplicates. So I can write on the top copy and tear that off. And then I can share that with the employee, and then I can keep the copy behind it. And what it does is it empowers employees to solve their own issues. So we're talking about with the employee their concern. We're telling them how they can solve it. But what it's doing is breaking that cycle of dependency. And the companies that I have worked with in the past that have implemented these personal action registers to break that cycle of dependency, they've utilized these pads, these personal action register pads, for about 6 months. And eventually, after 6 months, they go away because that cycle of dependency has been broken. Employees are able to discern, when do I need to get my leader involved, and when can I solve an issue myself? And also what happens is you get collaboration between employees, with employees asking each other questions about, hey, have you ever encountered this before? What'd you do? So it's a very powerful tool where you write down the action, what must happen, the R column is who's the responsible party, whether it's the leader or the employee. T's for the target date. When must it happen? And then see when was that action actually completed by. Let's talk about accountability analysis, and this is where we're going to measure that level of engagement I told you about earlier on. So what I'm about to show you is the measurable representation of employee engagement. Now, what I've done is I've taken my action register for the last 90 days. I've written my employees' names down, and I've documented how many actions have they taken or have they volunteered for, or they've been assigned, and then how many have they actually completed. So I'm looking out at my team, and you can come up with some of your own observations. Let me share with you some of the observations that I have when I look at this. One is that Shane and Gwen and Linda are my go-to people. Whenever I need something done, I'm going to them, asking them to do that. So I need to step back and ease off of them and not give them so many actions. And what I need to do is, one is I need to have a performance discussion with Anna, Patricia, and John and talk about their need to step up, to become more engaged. But also as a leader, I need to spend some time training them and giving them new assignments and stretching them to bring them up to par on the level of engagement. So it's a very powerful tool, and it's not your only performance management tool, but it's a tool that allows you to have meaningful discussions with your team and with your employees about the business. And what I have seen and learned is that Shane and Gwen and Linda absolutely love the accountability analysis because, one, now the playing field's going to be level. They're not going to be the ones that are going to be asked to be doing more and more. They're going to be the ones that now are on the same level with all the others on their team with that. And the first time you do this, you don't have to put even folks' names down in the first column. People are going to know. People are going to know that's Shane because Seth's always going to him, or that's Linda because she's always volunteering, but she's got way too much on her plate, because you can look at Linda at the bottom. She's got 8 actions, but she can only get 3 of them done because she's working on so many things. So it's a powerful tool, the accountability analysis, which will really measure the level of accountability and the level of engagement that you have within your organization. Connor, let's launch our third and final poll of the morning before we begin our wrap-up.
All right, 10 more seconds.
Be curious to see what the responses are of the 3 tools that we've just talked about.
Well, here you go. I guess if it were a popularity contest, it's a 3-way tie. Most people put all of the above.
Okay, well, good. Let me wrap up here, folks, and talk about employee accountability, true accountability. You use the action register I introduced you to. You'll have more meaningful meetings. They'll be shorter. They'll be quicker. They'll be more outcome-focused. You've got your scorecard in place. You tie it to your action register to drive that performance. And what you're going to ultimately do is you're going to improve the overall follow-through of assignments by all team members, because there's clearly defined assignments with target dates that have been agreed upon within your team, within your organization. Personal action registers. Let me touch on that real quick. You're going to empower your employees. Here's the what and the why. They provide the how, and they're going to do that. We're going to break that cycle of dependency that I see so many leaders have, or so many organizations have. Relevant, timely action coaching opportunities. We're going to coach and let our employees know, you're capable of doing this. This is how I want you to go do it. So quarterly accountability analysis, I showed that to you. Document who's doing what, who's completing them on time. Bring that visibility of accountability to your team members. Identify the necessary behaviors. You've got objective data for performance reviews. My first performance review I ever gave to an employee didn't go very well because I didn't have meaningful data measuring the level of engagement and the level of accountability. So now I've got that data. And then what it does for the leaders is I can stop managing by personality and managing by process, because I've got an accountability process built in within my organization. Connor, I want to pause here. It looks like we got about time for 2 questions, so if you could let me know if we received any questions, please.
Absolutely, and just a reminder, we can't get to everybody, so we'll follow up with you individually if we don't get to your question right now. So here's a really good one, Seth. Somebody asked about the personal action register, and their question is that something you use in your meetings as well, or is that separate from the action register that you would use in your meetings?
No, that's separate. The personal action register is related to a specific individual or to a specific leader. The action register, the large one, that's related to the team. And I want every team to have an action register that's accessible where they can look at things that they need to do with that. So one more.
Okay. Another great question came in when you were showing the slide that shows the linkage between a scorecard and an action register, and someone asked, if a KPI is assigned to a specific person, is that the same person who's also going to be the one accepting any actions regarding, that specific KPI or metric?
No, what I like to see is I like to see the team talk about the KPIs that are below target, and the team come up with the corrective action. Now, it may be assigned to the employee that's got whose name's by it, but I want there to be a collective discussion about what are the things that we can do differently to impact that metric to drive it from red to green. Folks, I want to thank you for joining us today. I hope it's been beneficial. Next month, we're going to talk about communication, and communication is one of those things that's usually one of the top 2 issues in most organizations. So I want to help you have more focused, better meetings and eliminate those ineffective meetings that you have. Again, we've got the workshops coming up seminars next month here in Atlanta with that. And always on our website, process-based-leadership.com. We've got archives of all of our webinars. We've got over 20 webinars there. So I'm going to close out. Connor, if you would launch our final poll, our survey, exit survey. Folks, have a great day and look forward to speaking with you next month. Bye-bye.
All right, and just as a reminder, as you close out of the survey, of the webinar, the survey will pop up for you. So please do take about 30 seconds to fill it out for us and take any opportunity there to give us any thoughts or feedback or suggestions on future topics that you'd like. Thanks again, and we'll see you next month.